going to talk about The Memory Keeper of Kyiv by Erin Litteken. This is her first novel and could be considered historical fiction mixed with a bit of new romance. The Memory Keeper of Kyiv is told in alternating chapters of 2004 in Illinois and about 1929 to 1934 in a rural agricultural area outside of Kyiv, Ukraine. In 2004 Illinois, Cassie, who has recently lost her husband to a car accident and is single parenting her young daughter, goes to live with her Bobby, or grandma, who is ailing. Cassie, although knowing she's of Ukrainian descent, knows nothing of her lineage and hopes to find answers from her aging grandmother, who refuses to talk about the issue. In 1930s Ukraine, the rural population is under the grip of the Russian leader Joseph Stalin, who is pushing for a collective, or communism, over capitalistic farming. And here we meet a family of two parents and two teenage sisters, Katya and Alina, and their extended relatives, as well as local farm families, especially two young brothers, Pavlo and Kolya. As the novel progresses, we see Cassie trying to grieve the loss of her husband and trying to decipher a series of notes and journals belonging to her grandmother that would enlighten her about her past. Enter Nick, who just happens to live down the street, just happens to be a very handsome firefighter, and also just happens to be of Ukrainian descent, and who can speak and read Ukrainian. We see the Ukrainian farming community struggling under the Russian rule, enduring starvation and cruelty, being forced to make very difficult moral decisions simply to preserve life itself, and eventually being decimated by lack of food, death, and hopelessness. Resistors were taken away, killed, or brutally assaulted. Although the writing in this novel seems rather simplistic and the storyline quite predictable, in my opinion, the value lies in the fact that we learn something of the Holodomor in the 1930s. And I have to admit that I knew very little, despite standing right at the memorial in Kyiv in some of our recent travels and taking pictures of the well-known statue of the little girl clutching stalks of grain. I really encourage a quick internet search of the Holodomor for historical research and factual information. This novel is really timely given the current Russian invasion of Ukraine and the extent of the war, and it really puts into light the lengthy history and depth of their conflict. But I'll give a warning, there's death, a lot of death and hardship in this book. I'm glad I read The Memory Keeper of Kyiv, mostly as encouragement to research a bit more about the sordid Ukrainian-Russian relationship. And it's a great reminder, that if we don't make changes and if we don't teach history to younger generations, history will repeat itself. And as I always say, remember to read to the last word of the epilogue. The Memory Keeper of Kyiv by Erin Litteken.